Imagine this. It's 2011. You've just watched one of the most visually inventive animated films of the decade. It ends on a cliffhanger, practically screaming, Part 2 is on the way. The director stands up in interviews and confirms it. A sequel is coming, so you wait, and wait, and then wait some more.
I don't read French, but I could read the story just based on the illustrations, the amazing. It was done by Hergé. I didn't need to read the words. When I got to the end of it...
13 years later, still nothing. That is the story of The Adventures of Tintin 2, a sequel that has been officially announced, written, rewritten, scrapped, re-announced, and dangled in front of fans so many times that at this point it feels less like a film in development and more like a running joke. So today, we're pulling apart exactly what happened. Why, despite a profitable first film, two of the most powerful filmmakers on the planet, and over a decade of public promises, has a Tintin sequel never made it to the big screen? Let's get into it. To understand why the sequel stalled, you first have to appreciate how unlikely it was that the original film existed at all. Project nearly fell apart multiple times before a single frame was ever shot. It starts in 1981. Spielberg had just released Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Hergé, the Belgian creator of the Tintin comics, watched it and saw exactly the spirit a Tintin film needed. He reached out. A meeting was arranged for 1983, and the two were set to finally talk. Tragically, Hergé passed away that same week. They never met, but Hergé's widow, Fanny Remy, believed Spielberg was still the right person for the job. She granted him the rights anyway. By 1984, Spielberg had a 3-year option to adapt the series, and he brought on Melissa Matheson, the screenwriter behind E.T., to write a script set in Africa. It looked like it was actually happening. Except Spielberg had doubts. He didn't feel the technology existed yet to honor Hergé's world the way it deserved. So he moved on to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The rights expired, and the project drifted. Roman Polanski and Claude Berry both circled it at Warner Brothers, but the Hergé Foundation, fiercely protective of the property, rejected Warner's terms over artistic control. Another dead end. In 2001, Spielberg returned. DreamWorks re-established the rights, and by 2004, he made a call that changed everything. He rang Peter Jackson, fresh off The Lord of the Rings, to ask whether Weta Digital could build a photorealistic animated dog for the film. Jackson was a lifelong Tintin reader, and he came back with a bigger proposal. Action wouldn't do Hergé's unique visual style justice. Motion capture was the answer. They shot a 20-minute test reel in 2006 to prove the concept worked. It did. By May 2007, the project was greenlit. The script bounced through Stephen Moffat, Edgar Wright, Joe Cornish, and eventually Spielberg and Jackson themselves. Then Universal pulled out, a month before cameras were supposed to roll, spooked by the poor box office performance of other motion capture films. Spielberg refused to quit. He went to Paramount directly, brought Sony in to co-finance internationally, and production finally started in January 2009, nearly 26 years after this project was first conceived. When Tintin finally hit theaters in 2011, it was genuinely miraculous that it existed at all. Short answer: yes. Just not in the way studios prefer to see. The budget came in around $135 million. In the film industry, a movie typically needs to gross roughly 2.5 times its production budget just to break even, once you account for marketing, distribution fees, and theaters taking their cut. That put Tintin's target at around $335 million worldwide. In America, it struggled. It opened on December 23rd at number 5, behind Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol, Sherlock Holmes, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and Alvin and the Chipmunks. Chipwrecked. Yes, really. But the following weekend, it made more money than its opening, a 17% jump to $11 million. Films almost never do that. It's a classic sign of exceptional word of mouth. People were telling their friends, By the end of its US run, 77 million. Modest. But Tintin has never been a big property in America. Overseas is where the brand lives, and internationally, the film pulled 296 million, bringing the worldwide total to 373 million. A genuine box office profit. Critics agreed, 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.3 on IMDb. Well-liked, well-reviewed, and crucially, the Sony co-financing deal had contractually committed funding for the first two films. A sequel wasn't just assumed, it was written into the contract. So with momentum, goodwill, money, and a legal obligation to follow up, what on earth went wrong? Immediately after the film's release, Spielberg confirmed the sequel. Jackson would direct while Spielberg produced. Anthony Horowitz had already written a script based on two classic Tintin stories, The Seven Crystal Balls and Prisoners of the Sun. The cast was intact, the money was in place, it sounded perfect. What could possibly go wrong? Well, The Hobbit happened. Jackson had been producing two Hobbit films under director Guillermo del Toro. Del Toro walked away in 2010, leaving the studio in a panic, and Jackson with no choice but to step in as director himself. At the last minute, with cameras already approaching, and what was two films became three. The Hobbit trilogy consumed Jackson's life from 2010 to 2014. Tintin had to wait. In December 2011, producer Kathleen Kennedy was optimistic. The Tintin 2 script could be done by February 2012, motion capture shooting in the summer, released by Christmas 2014. Then, in 2013, Jackson and Spielberg were both publicly saying the same thing. Script is done, targeting a holiday 2015 release. 2015 came and went. No Tintin. When asked directly after The Hobbit, Jackson said it would happen, but he wanted to make two personal New Zealand films first. That phrase, "at some point soon," became the Tintin sequel's unofficial motto. In the summer of 2015, there was a brief moment of genuine hope. Jamie Bell, Tintin himself, said filming could start in early 2016. He had a release window. He even had a title, Tintin and the Temple of the Sun. Things felt real. Then in November, Anthony Horowitz went public. He was no longer working on the sequel, and he wasn't sure it would ever get made. By early 2016, his script was officially scrapped. Rumors spread that Jackson was no longer directing. Spielberg stepped in. Relax. Jackson is still on board. He's just finishing another project. Details confidential. That was March 2016. Then nothing for 2 full years. In 2018, both men resurfaced with updates. It's still happening. Just a few more years. Jackson added, almost casually, that the script still hadn't been written. In 2018. 7 years after the original film. Then silence. 2019, 2020, 2021. The 10th anniversary of Tintin passed without a single announcement. In 2022, Jamie Bell told an interviewer he was ready to return, just waiting for Peter Jackson's call. The most recent update came in 2024, when Andy Serkis confirmed Jackson was, quote, definitely still working on it. And that is where things stand today. The core issue is straightforward. This film depends entirely on Peter Jackson. And Jackson has spent the years since The Hobbit doing exactly what he wants. They Shall Not Grow Old, Get Back. Both remarkable films. Both deeply personal choices, and honestly, I respect that completely. But Tintin 2 has never been anyone's passion project. It's always been the thing that happens after the current thing. It permanently lives at number 2 on Jackson's priority list. Close enough to keep alive, far enough to never get made. There's also the money. Motion capture is extraordinarily expensive, and the market for high-budget animated or hybrid films has grown more cautious since 2011. Getting a studio to commit $150 million to a Tintin sequel today is a meaningfully harder conversation than it was 14 years ago. And underneath everything sits the rights. The Air Foundation rejected Warner Brothers over artistic control back in the early 2000s. Whether the original deal with Spielberg and Jackson still holds after more than a decade of no movement is its own unanswered question. Put it all together, and you have a project that requires Jackson's schedule, Spielberg's involvement, studio financing, rights clearance, and a complete script, all in alignment simultaneously. Every time one element inches forward, something else shifts. I'll be direct. The pattern here is too consistent to dismiss. Every 2 or 3 years, someone connected to the project surfaces with a warm, vague quote. Fans light up. And then, nothing happens. That cycle has played out at least 6 times now. At some point, you have to ask whether these updates represent real progress, or whether they're just Hollywood's polite way of keeping a valuable property in the news without actually committing to it. That said, I don't think it's dead. The original cast is willing to come back. Both directors are still active. And the Tintin brand, especially outside the US, is as strong as ever. The audience exists. The will, in theory, is there. My honest prediction: either Jackson names this as his next project in the next couple of years, or at some point a studio reboots it entirely with a different director. Properties this valuable don't stay dormant forever. Personally, I love this film. It's one of the most purely enjoyable cinema experiences I can remember, full of pace, invention, and genuine fun. The world Spielberg created felt like a beginning, not a standalone. It deserves to continue. It would be genuinely sad if it never did. But I'll believe in a Tintin sequel the day I'm actually sitting in the theater watching it. That's the long and baffling story of The Adventures of Tintin 2. What's your take? Does this film ever actually get made? Drop your prediction in the comments. I'd love to know.